Okay, so basically this was to be flat on there because it's going to be like this, and this has to be flat because that's where the fingerboard goes on later on. So eventually what happens is as you get further, the fingerboard goes on there. So this has to be flat because if it's not, it's going to wobble and you can't play. This eventually over here will be the scroll. I have templates. And the only time I don't use hand tools is in my bandsaw when I've got to take a template and out of a block of wood. This is strictly just a block of wood. Similar to this. It's just a bunch of wood that's cut this way. But you still got to measure it and do what I'm doing, get it down to the thickness. The other thing is sometimes with a block of wood. It looks like this. Yeah. And you got to do a lot of cutting on that with your hand plane. But this one's not the one I'm going to use. So basically, what this one is I did the same thing. I had a piece of wood similar to that, got it down to this part, which is flat on both sides. And how we check the flatness is using a square. And since this was going to be this part here, the flat where the fingerboard's going on, that has to be flattened first. Then you take one other side, and which happened to be this side, and flatten that because it was at an angle, and flatten that with the square. You check it, you look at the lights, if there's any leaking out, you can see whether or not. You can also do this to see whether it should not go back and forth. So then you had the two sides, and then the third side, you had to bring it down at here to 42 millimeters. And also making sure that it is flat also. From there, which I won't do tonight because I'll probably end up killing myself, is that never operate machinery. Like I said, most of the time it's just the only time I'm using it. Everything else is all hand planes, even teeny tiny ones. Let me get a teeny tiny one on here. Instead of a hand plane, it's too small to be in your hand. So you got a thing called a finger plane, which is for your fingers. And that's what you use mostly on the body and later on in other parts. But the bandsaw I'll use for when I do the major cut. Like this one now, since I've got it flat, I'll be lining the template here on here to get this, because this is where the fingerboard would fit on. If it was a piece of wood, it fits on like that. Okay, I know the light's terrible, but I'm downstairs in the basement. So then this one will eventually go on here. I'll mark this up, and then onto the bandsaw, cut that to what the template is, similar to what I did earlier with this one. So that is basically a rough cutout, and that's from there. All the electric stuff goes away, and it's back to the hand planes, finger planes, gouges, files, and all that kind of good stuff. But I figured since I'm not bowling, what the heck, let's just see what's going on in this little crazy little world of mine. I'll be working on that probably tomorrow because it's cold out here, and I didn't feel like going out because I didn't have to go bowling, and I don't have to go bowling tomorrow, so I'll probably be down here also. To let you know, I had put in the description what I had already completed and why I'm working on the neck are these two instruments. This one here is my model of a a Strad. And basically, is this like Antonio's? No. But what we do is we have like the template for the scroll and the neck. We also have a template for, let me get this out of the way. We have templates also for violins and violas. And on our wood, we have two pieces of wood. I can't get any at any time, but they're two pieces of wood. They're quarter cut. And then you eventually get those down to size, you glue them up, and then you place, there's these little holes here, and you drill a little hole, and then you place it on one, you trace it around, and then you flip it over, and you trace the other side. And at that point then, when you've got that all drawn on the regular piece of wood, which ends up looking like a triangle, I'll use the bandsaw again to cut out the framework, and then the bandsaw goes away. So it's all done with templates and just wood. And the bigger cuts are there. From that point, you'll take it and the instrument itself, those are used for the top, which is spruce, and the bottom, which is maple. We have the sides there, which are also maple. But in order to put all this together, I've taken that same form. There's my little holes for the same form. Put that on there, drew that, and then we cut this. This is the inside form, and in these little grooves here is where we put blocks. The blocks themselves eventually make the corner. Okay, and they're there for support. And then how we get the sides, we basically have small pieces of wood that we thin down. Let's see if I can get one here. Oops. This is in its raw form. It's maple also. And we get that down to a small thickness, and then we cut it to size. And then I have a bending iron. We get it a little bit wet. And I have a bending iron over here, which gets hot. And then it looks like that. And I will take the piece of wood when it's a little bit wet and then bend it around. Okay. Now you're saying, okay, fine, you're going to bend it. Why doesn't it crack? Well, first of all, you don't go hog wild either. But you basically put the rib itself inside of this. This is a metal kind of a harness thing. Put that in there, and then you can take that and go like that on the bending iron to bend it. All right? From that point, you then, on these forms, put them to meet there, and then clamp them, glue them to the block, because you'll do the blocks first. And then when you have the whole frame together, and then you eventually get the back on there, after thinning it and arching it and all that stuff, then you pull the form out, and then you put the top on. And then that's it. And then, if everything is done right, you eventually get something that looks like this, with a string broken, but put better strings on there. And that's basically it. You got the spruce on the top, you got the maple on the back and the sides. The neck itself is also maple. And then you have the ebony for the fingerboard. And then you got also the fittings, which is the chin rest and that. And then it's ready to play, if you have all the strings on it. So that's the little world I do inside and this is the other one that I've got going. This is the Guarneri. And how do you tell the difference? Well, first of all, if you look, the Strad is longer, okay? The Guarneri and the F-holes of the Strad, I mean, you can't tell right away, maybe, but they're different, okay? And how do I get the F-holes like that? Well, I'm glad you asked. I know two people asked. I have over here plastic templates that I've taken from posters or whatever. And then when I get the wood all there, I'll lay that on there, dry it out, and then we have a file by hand. You put it in there, and you just and cut it. Sounds simple, but it's not overly difficult. It just takes time. And at my age, I've got nothing but time. So, except when I'm not bowling. So, thank you for my little dropping by in my little world here. Hopefully this didn't put you to sleep. But I just wanted to let you know, since I was down here, that I'll give you a little idea of what his backman do when he doesn't bowl. Okay, besides clean his balls. Once the balls are all clean, then what do I do? So, thank you for stopping by. And I've got Saturday is my next time to bowl. Saturday night mix at Payless. I hope you join me. One of the things I don't do, and I don't like to make a habit of doing it, I just don't like it, but if you want to subscribe, feel free to subscribe. But I'm not going to push you to it. It's not going to make much difference. I'm not trying to set any land speed records or anything like that. I enjoy bowling, and I enjoy being able to share me bowling, whether it's good or whether it's bad. And that's all there is. So thank you very much, and here, tomorrow I'll work on this, and depending upon how it goes, I may live stream that, but it's really kind of not that exciting. But it is fun when you're on this end and like building. The fun part is when you get it all together, and then you get it varnished, and you get the strings put on, and you get the play. It's like, wow, it's really cool. Like I said, the Strad that I'm making is not going to be a $16 million Strad. It's not going to be. The Guarneri is not going to be a $10 million Guarneri. No. Most of the value on the other side is the fact that Antonio made his back in the 1700s and was a phenomenal builder. And actually an inventor too, because he experimented with different forms and stuff like that. And Guarneri, of course. The most fascinating thing for me about all this, which is a lot of reasons why I do certain things, I think I'm fascinated by bowling, and I love learning by bowling. I love learning by this. I studied 3 years at the Chicago School for Violin Making and Scoring. And from 2012 to 2014. But the thing that struck me the most was what I do is just kind of like be a parrot. And in the same way in bowling too. I mean, all the greats that were out there, unfortunately the greats I get to bowl with still today, and I'm really, really happy about the World Series of Bowling and PBA 50 being on national TV. Please watch. But the thing about it is that no instrument is the same. No game is the same. No frame is the same, unless you get a 300. But it's still not the same. The fascinating thing about violin making to me was the Amati family was one of the first ones to really make the contemporary violin. They had viols back in the old days and stuff like that. These guys were doing it around 1500s. Strad was around 1700s. To sit back and think, we're in 2026 now, and this was in 1500s, and these guys were doing this. They were the ones that created. They were the ones that came up with the ideas. They were the ones that experimented. And I just learned kind of what they did, and by no means will mine be as great as theirs, but that's the one I'm looking at for. I'm just kind of doing it for fun. And I'm just amazed at what we can do. This is simply a block plane with a blade on it, which I did sharpen before because they hadn't done it in a while. And this is just a piece of maple that was once a tree. I'm fascinated by that, just as if I'm fascinated by the bowlers that I've been lucky and fortunate enough to bowl with on on tour. Pete Weber, Parker Bowen, Walter Ray, all these guys that I've been able and fortunate enough to bowl next to Chris Barnes, bowl next to, bowl sometimes cross with or cross next to. You're throwing on the same pair of lanes, especially if you're crossing them, and they're scoring 230s and 240s, and I'm shooting 170s, 180s, and lucky to get a 2-0. You just learn, and you just watch, and you appreciate. Finally, I appreciate every one of you follow me along my leads, good nights, bad nights, watching me on Bowl TV, chatting with me on Bowl TV. That's why I do it, besides just loving the game. So, Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you very much, and spending a little time with me tonight. I'll see you Saturday at Payless in the Saturday evening.